Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
I kept my jacket on too long. Not because it was cold. Linda's house runs hotter than her temper, but because of what I had in the inside pockets. 4 tiny red stockings with velvet loops, folded flat, and 4 small plush toys. A bear, another bear, a rabbit, and a penguin. They felt heavier than they should have. My name's Evan. I'm 30, a financial analyst in San Francisco. Married to Paige, 29, CPA, can do a tax return like she's tying her shoes. We live in Palo Alto, about 40 minutes from this over-designed Menlo Park house, where every holiday feels like a listing presentation with catered food and too much lighting. The second we walked in, it hit me. The smell of cinnamon and pine cleaner. 2 servers in black shirts sliding through the dining room like this was a Four Seasons ballroom. The usual setup, and I already knew how it was going to go. While you're listening, drop your city or country in the comments. Let's see where everyone's tuning in from. Thanks, and let's dive in. Linda, my mother-in-law, runs a brokerage like it's a Fortune 500, not a 2-office real estate hustle. She air-kissed Paige, skipped me, and then told a server, he can handle the Merlot, like I was some teenager sneaking drinks at prom. Big turnout this year, I said, trying to stay civil. Of course, she replied, scanning the room. When you build something real, people come. Subtle. We hadn't told anyone about the adoption, 14 months in, and it wasn't secrecy, it was protection. You don't hand your biggest decision to people who talk about grandkids like they talk about equity returns, and we hadn't even planned to say anything tonight. But 3 days ago, the agency matched us. Infant triplets, 2 boys, 1 girl, and a big sister, Zoe, 4 years old. They wanted to keep the siblings together if possible. And we felt it. Not just good feelings. The kind that lands in your gut and sticks. We were ready. But this crowd? Not built for ready. Built for optics. Tessa floated in late, of course. Paige's older sister, winter white dress like she planned to be photographed, face locked in that little fake smile like she just caught a whiff of something cheap. She hugged Linda, nodded at Paige, barely looked at me. Tessa, I said. Evan, she replied, already scanning for her reflection in the fireplace glass. She sells high-end rentals for Linda, thinks success is a lease term and a new Audi every other year. Robert stood by the bar. Navy blazer, tie loose. Not blood, but closer than most. Godfather type. Quiet enough to scare the loud people. He just nodded when we walked in. That man knows how to wait out a storm. I felt Paige squeeze my hand. Her thumb traced a slow circle on the side of mine. We weren't scared, just bracing. Dinner was formal. Place cards, naturally. I got sandwiched between Uncle Gene, whose money is a mystery and always will be, and a new agent who pitched mortgage hacks between bites like he was on TikTok. Free money if you know a guy, he told me, pointing at the prime rib. Yeah, I said, but the interest always shows up. By the time we hit the salad course, Linda started glancing at Paige's stomach. Little flickers, like she was checking a clock. I saw it. I felt the shift. This wasn't just dinner. It was a setup. I slid my hand into my jacket pocket and felt the soft edge of a stocking. We hadn't decided when to say it, just that we might, if the night went how we expected. I looked across the table. Tessa poured wine like it was a business expense. Linda leaned in, fake laughing at something the guy from Sunnyvale said. Paige was focused, jaw tight. I knew it then. This wasn't going to be quiet. The blast was coming. And I had 4 little reminders in my pocket to make damn sure we weren't backing down. Linda didn't blink. Her wine glass hovered halfway to her lips, and her eyes locked on mine like I'd just tossed a smoke bomb into escrow. The table was dead quiet. Forks froze. Soup cooled. Even the servers picked a different room to be in. She tilted her head and smiled like she was about to hand me a pamphlet titled, Why You're Not Enough. Permission isn't the issue, Evan, she said. It's responsibility. Paige's future deserves stability, not just sentiment. Paige didn't move, but her voice landed sharp. I have stability, and you should protect it, Linda said, cutting her off without raising her volume. Don't confuse urgency with readiness, especially not when it's driven by emotion. That was rich, coming from a woman who decorates her foyer like grief is a design flaw. Tessa folded her napkin and jumped in like it was her cue. "We just care about your life staying on track," she said to Paige, then turned to me with that slick smile she uses on clients she's pricing above market. "There's no shame in waiting, or admitting something's too big, too fast." She said it like we'd adopted a boat. "I'd love to know what too big means," I said. "Is 4 too big? Or is it that they don't come with our last name and a high-yield trust?" Linda didn't answer. She just set her fork down with precision and leaned back, like she was settling into a case she knew she'd win. "I spoke with an old friend last week," she said. "Her adoption experience was a disaster. The child came with trauma, the marriage fell apart, and they ended up rehoming him. Do you understand what that means? Rehoming. Like a pet." A gasp came from the far end of the table. One of the younger cousins, I think. Jean muttered something I didn't catch, but he didn't look surprised. Paige closed her eyes for half a second, like she was absorbing an impact in slow motion. Linda kept going. "Adoption is admirable, but it's not romantic. It's expensive, emotionally and financially, and you're already strained." She didn't even look at me when she said it, like I wasn't part of the equation. "I'm not strained," Paige said, her tone flat as granite. "I'm ready. And I don't need your cautionary tales or your approval." Tessa raised her hands like a ref stepping into a brawl. "Let's just breathe a minute. Nobody's attacking. We're just worried." "No," I said. "You're not worried. You're measuring, like you always do. What kind of kid, what kind of job, what kind of future adds up to the version you'll co-sign?" Linda finally turned to me, smiling just enough to be dangerous. I could feel it in my jaw, that clench I used to get when I worked corporate, and some overpaid VP tried to sell my own pitch back to me with worse numbers. I took a slow breath and sat back in my chair. "Legacy isn't about DNA," I said. "It's about what the hell you do when someone smaller than you needs a place to land." There was a pause. The kind you only get when a family realizes someone's not bluffing anymore. Linda leaned forward, elbows on the table now. "Then answer me this," she said, each word cut clean. "Why now? Why not wait until your career is solid?" "My career is solid," I said. "You just don't like that it doesn't come with a title you can drop at fundraisers." Tessa took a sip of wine like she'd been waiting for the next opportunity. "You know, Tyler just got promoted to senior VP. His wife's due in March. Their house in Los Altos." I didn't let her finish. "Yeah, we know." "You bring him up every time you want to remind Paige there was a shinier option." I turned to Paige. "You want shinier?" She shook her head. "I want this. U.S. These kids. No upgrades needed." Someone dropped a knife. Clatter, echo, silence again. Linda stood up slowly, her cloth napkin folded tight in her hand. "When I built this brokerage," she began like every speech she's ever given, "I had to make hard calls, sacrifice, prioritize. You don't get everything you want just because you believe hard enough. We're not asking for everything," I said. "We're asking for support, or at least a hallway pass to live our own damn lives." She looked at Paige and softened just enough to make it worse. "Sweetie, you've always been the reasonable one, the solid one. You don't need to tie yourself to chaos just because it makes a good story. These aren't just kids, they're liabilities." "Stop," Paige said. One word. Final. She didn't raise her voice, but it cut through the noise like she'd smacked a gavel. "If you're going to talk about children like they're furniture with a scratch, then don't speak at all." I felt something shift next to me. Paige wasn't the quiet calculator anymore. She was done playing polite. Robert coughed once, not loud, just enough to remind the table he was still there. His eyes were on Linda, but his mouth stayed shut. He was waiting. Watching. I pulled out the envelope from my inner jacket pocket, the one with the soft curve from the 4 stockings pressed against it. I didn't open it, just laid it on the table beside my wine glass like a chip on the table. We have a plan, I said. We didn't come here to ask your opinion. We came here because we thought maybe, just maybe, family would mean something. Linda looked at the envelope like it was a lawsuit. So that's it? You've decided? I nodded. We already did. We're not waiting for the market to approve. The cousins weren't eating anymore. Tessa looked stunned. Even the guy from Sunnyvale had his mouth open. Paige reached for my hand. I took it, steady. And then, behind me, I heard the buzz of my phone on the sideboard. I looked down. One name on the screen, Marisol, Family Care. And just like that, the next round was already here. The silence after Paige said all four didn't feel peaceful. It felt like we'd shattered a rule we never agreed to, but were still expected to follow. Linda blinked twice, slow, like she needed to reset before responding. She reached for her wine, but didn't drink. 4 children at once, she said finally, voice dipped in fake concern. You're not thinking clearly. That's not family. That's a crisis. I didn't even flinch. We're thinking very clearly. This isn't impulse. This is the plan. Whose plan? She shot back. The agency's? A social worker's? Certainly not one built on logic. Paige cut in before I could say something I'd regret. Our plan, she said. Ours. We've spent 14 months preparing for this. Her voice had a new edge, like she'd stopped apologizing and started deciding. Tessa leaned forward with that condescending tilt she does when she thinks she's offering wisdom. That's not how this works. You don't just take 4 kids and expect life to keep moving. You don't know what kind of trauma. We've read the reports, I snapped. We've done the classes, the background checks, the home visits, the psychological screenings. We know exactly what kind of trauma is possible. And we still said yes. A couple seats down, one of Linda's junior agents leaned toward another cousin and whispered, "They're really doing it. Like we were streaking across a football field, not trying to become parents." Linda let the silence breathe, then turned to Robert. "Are you really supporting this?" she asked, calm but sharp. 4 kids under 5? No family support? Financial instability? You think that's wise? Robert didn't even look at her. He looked at Paige. "Zoe," he said. "That's her name?" Paige nodded. "She draws whales. And she wants to be a teacher. She's 4. Robert smiled just enough to make Linda's face twitch. "Then it sounds like she's already the most prepared person in the room." Linda set her wine down like it had betrayed her. "This is insanity," she said. "You're gambling with your entire future. With your marriage. You can't even agree on furniture half the time." I reached for the envelope again and opened it this time. I pulled out a single sheet, just the agency's approval letter. No fanfare, no warm words, just the dry ink of bureaucracy and a date stamped in the corner. "They're coming next week," I said. "Transport is scheduled. All we have to do is sign and stay steady." Tessa let out a breathy laugh, shaking her head like we were kids pretending to be grown-ups. "This is a phase," she said. "Some fantasy to distract from real life. You'll burn out. You'll tap out. And then what?" Robert stood again, this time with intention. "Then they'll ask for help. And they'll get it." Linda's mouth opened, but he held up one finger. "I don't want to hear another word about logic or legacy or what makes a real family. You've made your point, over and over, and now it's time for someone else to speak." He turned to me and said, "Do you need anything tonight?" It caught me off guard. I blinked. "Tonight?" "Yes," he said. "Tonight, furniture, bottles, sleep sacks, whatever. Do you need anything?" I shook my head once, then paused. "Actually, we could use one more infant seat. I only borrowed 3 to test fit in the car." "Done," he said. "Send me the model." "I'll have it here tomorrow," Linda scoffed. "Buying car seats doesn't make you a parent. And throwing money at this doesn't make it less reckless." "No," Robert said, folding his napkin. "But showing up does. Which is more than I can say for most of the people trying to lecture them right now." The air shifted again. This time it wasn't tension. It was exposure. Like everyone at the table could finally see the cracks in the floor and who'd been kicking them wider. I turned to Paige, lowered my voice. Marisol needs signatures tonight. That means we start everything tonight. I need to get the packet open, send her confirmation. We still need to scan IDS, confirm insurance, sign the commitment on Zoe. I'll go with you, Paige said, standing. Her hand slid across my back as she moved past the table. We can work from the car if we need to. Linda pushed her chair back like it had insulted her. You're walking away in the middle of dinner? No, Paige said over her shoulder. We're walking towards something, and we're not asking you to understand it. I grabbed the envelope and the tablet from the bench behind the dining table. As we headed for the entryway, Robert followed, not close, but steady. You'll get pushback, he said low. From all directions. Don't let it throw your stride. I nodded. Not our first round of resistance. But it might be your loudest, he said, especially if someone still thinks they can stop it. I paused at the door, tablet in one hand, pages in the other. They can't, I said. Not anymore. Behind us, I could hear Linda trying to restart the dinner like nothing had happened. Tessa was mumbling something about needing to reschedule brunch. The cousins were mostly silent. No one looked comfortable. We stepped outside into the dark, cooler than expected for Menlo Park in December. Paige exhaled hard, like the night air was finally giving her back her breath. She looked at me. You think they'll back off? No, I said. I think they'll double down, but we're already ahead. We reached the car. I opened the passenger side so Paige could sit while I pulled up the email. Marisol's name sat at the top of my inbox, time-stamped 5 minutes ago. I opened the file. Paige leaned over my shoulder. There's Zoe's name, she said, tapping the line with her pinky. Full legal placement, pending final approval. All four, I clicked open the signature block. Then let's make it official, I said. Paige nodded. No looking back? Only forward? I replied, as the cursor hovered over the signature field. And with one click, the countdown started. Linda crossed her arms, the second page clicked the last field on the screen. No hesitation, no pause for breath. She went straight to threat. If you do this, don't expect help, she said. No down payment gifts, no trust disbursements, no introductions to clients. Her voice was clipped, like she'd practiced that line in her head for weeks. Like she'd hoped she'd never have to say it, but also hoped she'd get the chance. I didn't even blink. We didn't expect it, I said. Tessa jumped in right behind her, voice sugar-coated but sharp underneath. And if you're counting on Tyler's firm to keep you on, forget it. They don't take on chaos. That told me what I'd already suspected. She'd been talking about us behind our backs, running scenarios, pitching our lives like a bad investment at happy hour. I let them finish, then put my hand flat on the table. I didn't speak. Just slid the manila folder across the polished wood, like it was a final offer. Sapphire Ridge Capital, I said. Menlo Park Family Office. 6-month retainer. 210,000 base. Upside tied to diligence work. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't gloat. Just let the numbers sit there, right in Linda's house, where numbers matter more than names. Tessa leaned over and squinted at the header. Contracting, she said, like she was diagnosing a disease. It's stability, I replied. With hours I can control and money that keeps 4 kids in shoes and doctor visits. Linda wasn't impressed. She picked up the folder like it was a used napkin, glanced at the front page, then set it back down. I spoke with an adoption attorney, she said, one who specializes in disrupted placements. That phrase hit like a slap. Disrupted placements. That's what they call it when adoptive families give up. Return to sender. Back into the system. Once those kids have delays, and they will, you'll drown, she added, as if she were doing us a favor. I stayed calm, not because I wasn't angry, because I needed her to hear every word. We've got a pediatrician at Stanford Children's lined up, a trauma therapist at a clinic in Mountain View, a neighbor who runs a daycare and already offered hours. We didn't stumble into this, She blinked. Once. Slow. Then the smile disappeared. She dropped the line she'd been holding in reserve, the one she thought would break us. "I called the agency 2 weeks ago," she said, shoulders back, chin up like she was proud of it. "I told them I had concerns about your readiness, your financials, extended family support. The things they look for." Paige went dead still beside me. I felt her arm go rigid. Her voice was a whisper that didn't shake. "You tried to block us." "I protect what's mine," Linda said. "I protect my daughter." She said it like Paige was a property she still had the deed to. I reached for my phone. The email from Marisol was still open on the screen. I scrolled to the bottom and there it was, CC'd to a supervisor, and to someone else I hadn't noticed until now, Robert's foundation. I looked up at him. He was still standing, hands in his pockets, watching like a man watching an auction he'd already won. "Your call delayed us a week," I said, turning back to Linda. "Marisol had to verify everything all over again. Employment, housing, medical providers, whether we were living in a tent behind the Googleplex. Thanks for the paperwork party." Linda didn't deny it. She didn't apologize either. She just said, "Due diligence is part of any process. If you can't handle scrutiny, you're not ready for this." "You didn't call to help," Paige said. Her voice had dropped an octave. Controlled, focused. "You called to derail it. You wanted to spook the agency. Maybe get them to delay. Or pass us over completely." Linda looked right at her. No shame. No backing down. "I called because I've seen how fast lives unravel. I've seen good intentions crash into reality. And I won't let you throw yourself into something you'll regret." "I don't regret saying yes," Paige said. "What I regret is believing you'd be behind me when it counted." Tessa reached for her glass, but her hand hovered mid-air. The table was too quiet. Even the cousins who usually kept their heads down were watching like a court ruling was about to be handed down. I picked up the folder again and slid it back into my bag. "We're making the decision anyway," I said. "You can put the ladder wherever you want. We're not climbing it." Linda tilted her head. "You think that retainer makes you bulletproof?" "No," I said. "It makes us ready. For lawyers, for groceries, for what's coming Tuesday morning when 4 small people step into our house and call it home." She narrowed her eyes. "You'll come back. When it gets hard. When the numbers get tight. When Zoe draws something dark and the infants don't sleep. You'll come back." "We won't," Paige said, "because we're not running this like a business." Tessa leaned in again, trying for some middle ground. "What if you just took Zoe? Eased in, waited on the triplets?" "Not an option," I said. "That's not how siblings work. That's not how families work." Robert finally stepped forward. Not rushed, not dramatic, just ready. He placed one hand flat on the table. "I've been quiet long enough," he said, voice low but clear. Linda opened her mouth to cut him off, but he raised one finger. "That's all." She stopped. I looked over at Paige. She gave me the smallest nod. Tight, almost invisible. We were aligned. Fully. Robert looked at Linda, then the others. "Time to decide where you stand," he said. "Because those kids are coming. And this family's either going to show up or step aside." And from the look on his face, I knew he already had more to say. Robert cleared his throat, low and slow, the way he does when he's about to take a room that doesn't want to be moved and shifted anyway. "Linda," he said, and didn't have to raise his voice. "You called the agency." She blinked but didn't deny it. "I know because you copied someone who sits on a board eye chair," he said. "You left a digital fingerprint on a file you didn't expect anyone to read twice." The entire table stilled. Even the cousins who'd been fake texting through the awkwardness lifted their eyes. Robert doesn't bluff. He doesn't need to. He delivers his words like he's laying bricks. Slow, level, permanent. "You raised flags," he said. "They did their job. They followed up. And what they found was a couple who prepared like adults." He turned his head toward me. "You fitted the latch guides last weekend. Test fit a borrowed infant seat. Triple-check the straps, I nodded. I had. Robert added, he sent me a photo because he thought I'd care. His voice didn't crack. It didn't climb. But the weight of it landed on every wall in that house. Everyone learned something about me they hadn't earned. Adoption isn't charity, Robert said, now to the room. It's structure, grit, showing up when you're tired and broke and second-guessing everything. It's not a trend or a phase or a pity play. It's a contract you don't break. His eyes locked on Linda. And it damn sure isn't a business deal you get to undercut. She crossed her legs and tried to lean back like none of it mattered. You're making this overly dramatic, she said, dry, fake smiling. Robert didn't even blink. If you're threatening to cut them off, do it clean. No half offers, no strings, no wrapped gifts with disclaimers. One of the cousins cleared his throat and shifted like his chair had turned into a heat lamp. We don't need noise, Robert said, now to the whole group. We need a foundation. That's what this is, and it starts tonight. Then his voice dropped a half step, softer, but heavier. The kind of tone he only used when he wanted something to stick. I was chosen, he said. I wasn't born into my family. I was selected. That moment, the day they picked me, built everything that came after it. He looked at me again. If a supervisor needs a call, they'll get one. If a landlord needs a call, same. If you need backup in court, or at a PTA meeting, or while figuring out stroller logistics in a Costco parking lot, you call me. I didn't speak. I couldn't. I just nodded once. Then he pivoted. Furniture, strollers, a cargo mat for the trunk. You already have a list. Send it. He wasn't offering charity. He wasn't offering love. He was offering logistics. And I could work with logistics. Linda gave a short, dry laugh. This is all very grand, she said. Robert cut her off mid-breath. No, he said. This is very ordinary. This is what family does when they mean it. She went quiet, lips pressed into a thin line. Tessa opened her mouth like she was about to inject herself back in. Robert didn't even look at her. We don't need more voices, he said. We need actions. Then he picked up his water glass and took a slow sip like he'd just passed judgment and didn't need anyone to respond. The entire room felt different after that, like the temperature had shifted a few degrees lower and no one knew what to do with their hands. I realized in that moment how braced I'd been all night. My jaw, my shoulders, even the way I sat. It was like I'd been ready for a blow I'd already taken. I turned to look at Paige. Her eyes were glassy, but she wasn't blinking them away. She wasn't fragile. She was finished. We pushed our chairs back and stood. We were halfway to the door when I stopped. Not for drama, not for effect. Just because there was one last thing I needed to do before we walked out of that house for good. I reached into my jacket and pulled the 4 mini stockings, rolled tight from the ride down. My fingers found the seams by feel, old habit from years of working in numbers where touch tells you what's real. I walked to the mantel without a word. Every head turned. The forks paused mid-air. The clink of dessert plates stopped. You'd think I'd pulled out a gun. I hung them, left to right, in the only strip of empty space between the overdone holiday wreaths and a framed photo of Linda cutting a ribbon at a new office opening. The stockings looked like little warnings, red against all that gold. You're making a scene, Linda said from behind me. No, I said, adjusting the last loop. I'm making a point. I pulled the 4 plush toys from the other pocket, 2 bears, a rabbit, and the penguin Zoe had hugged the last time we visited the center. I lined them up on the hearth below the stockings, small and straight, like they were waiting their turn. Tessa let out a hissed comment behind me. Weaponized sentiment. Classic. I didn't answer. I was too focused on not letting my hands shake. They didn't. Paige stepped up next to me, silent. She didn't say anything, just slid her ringed hand into mine. Her grip was steady, warm. We stood there, side by side, for 1 second longer than was polite. It wasn't for the drama. It was just long enough to make sure everyone saw what mattered. Then we turned toward the hall. "You'll be back when the bills show up," Linda called out, her voice carried, smooth and smug. "You always come back when the math gets hard." I paused at the front closet, exhaled once, and touched the side of my bag. The folder inside was thick and real. Contract, financials, proof. "The bills already showed up," I said, turning just enough to meet her eye. "I paid them." The server stepped toward us, coat in hand, unsure. I reached out and took Paige's first, then mine. No fumble, no shuffle. I fumbled worse and still come out fine. We walked past the table slowly. No rush, no retreat, just movement. Robert met us halfway. He didn't say much, just shook my hand like we just closed something significant. His grip was firm, not performative. As he pulled back, he slipped a folded card into my palm. "For later," he said. Uncle Gene stood without speaking, gave me a nod like we'd just passed some invisible test. He didn't raise a glass, didn't give a speech, just that one nod. Sometimes that's enough. At the front door I paused, just once. The stockings were still visible from the hallway, lined up like soldiers beneath a photo of a woman who couldn't recognize a win unless it came with a ribbon and applause. Linda stood with her arms folded, diamond bracelet catching the overhead light, mouth tight like she was holding in a command she knew she couldn't give. I didn't take a picture, didn't need a souvenir. That image was already printed behind my eyes. Outside, the air felt colder than it should have. The kind of cold you don't expect in the South Bay unless you've been hit hard and aren't ready for it. Paige shivered a little. I opened her door. "Home," I said. That was the only plan we had left for the night, and the only one that mattered. She slid into the seat and didn't speak, but the way she exhaled told me everything. I closed her door, got in, and started the engine. The music inside the house started back up again behind us. Someone must have realized the playlist had stopped. It was some jazzy version of a holiday song that didn't quite hit right. Felt artificial. The house shrank behind us as we pulled away. Every window still blazing, lights perfectly staged, the kind of brightness that looks expensive but not warm. In the rearview mirror, it looked like a catalog, something people pretend to want until they realize it costs more than it gives. Paige rested her head on the side window for a second, then looked at me. "I can't believe we left them like that." "We didn't leave them," I said. "They just stayed behind." She smiled at that, tired, but real. Back on the main road, traffic was light. It was late, and the only people still out were those trying to outrun something. I glanced at her. "You okay?" "I will be," she said, "once we get home. Once I'm holding that paperwork in my own hands." "You don't trust the email?" I asked. "I trust it," she said. "I just need the weight of it." I nodded. I got it. There's something about real paper, a signature, the physical sound of a drawer opening to hold something that matters. We pulled off the highway 20 minutes later. Our neighborhood was quiet, real quiet. No show lights, no guests, just rows of houses waiting for Monday to roll back in. When we pulled into the driveway, the porch light we'd left on looked warmer than usual. Maybe it was just the contrast. Maybe it was because we were coming back from something colder. Inside, I dropped my bag on the bench and took off my shoes. The house didn't feel small. It didn't feel big either. It just felt ready. I pulled the 4 stockings out again and walked over to our own mantel. Smaller, simpler, no wreaths. Just one framed photo of us at Lake Tahoe. I hung the stockings in the same order, then set the 4 toys underneath, just like before. This time it didn't feel like a message. It felt like a beginning. Paige leaned against the hallway doorway, arms crossed, watching. "Looks better here," she said. "Yeah," I said. "It fits." She walked over, took my hand, and we stood there in front of that little setup like we were rehearsing for something bigger. "I'm gonna heat up that pie," she said. "I didn't even taste it back there." "Good," I said. "Let's eat it where it means something." While she went to the kitchen, I pulled the folded card Robert had given me from my pocket. Inside was a gift card to a baby store, and 3 short words in his handwriting: "Keep going forward." I set the card on the counter, then turned toward the hallway where the room we'd cleared was waiting. The door didn't stick anymore. I'd shaved it down last week when we were still in Maybeland. Now it opened smooth. I stepped inside. No cribs yet, just the space and a feeling. We were building something here, something no one could take back. And for the first time that day, I finally let myself picture it all. The sounds, the footsteps, the names being called from the hallway. It wasn't sentiment. It was structure, and it had already started. We got inside and didn't even drop our bags before switching modes. Paige headed straight for her laptop, kicked off her heels in one motion, and opened the spreadsheet she'd been quietly building for weeks. Zoe plus triplets, first 30 days. The file had tabs for formula brands, nap schedules, diaper types, and bath safety. I flipped on the tree lights. The glow hit the concrete floors and bounced up clean. No reflections. Linda once called them industrial and cold. I call them wipeable. I sat down at the kitchen island and opened Marisol's email. The adoption packet was there, 32 pages stacked like a digital staircase. Fields, witness lines, date boxes, signature blocks, everything real and final, just waiting on us. I forwarded the Sapphire Ridge Retainer PDF to our shared folder, dragged it into a subfolder labeled Protection Docs, then printed a backup for good measure. I pinned the printout to the fridge with a turtle magnet. That turtle came from a beach trip with Paige 5 years ago, back when we thought family planning was just another checkbox. I replied to Marisol, "We're in. Signatures coming. Confirm Friday 5 p.m. window." She wrote back within 10 minutes. Confirmed. Transport Tuesday pending court stamp. Pediatric screening. Thursday 10:40 a.m. You two are machines. Machines! I read out loud. Paige smiled without looking up from her screen. "She's not wrong," she said. My phone buzzed. Malik. He's 2 doors down, works construction, knows how to rewire things without burning the place down. Malik. Got your message. Window locks tomorrow. I'll bring outlet covers. Also that tool that makes you feel like you know what you're doing. I texted back, "If you also bring coffee, I'll pretend I helped." He replied with a thumbs up and a gif of a guy holding 6 cups like a tray. I went back to the emails, but one icon stood out: voicemail. I hadn't checked it since earlier in the week. It was from a number I hadn't saved since 2017. I tapped play. "Hey, it's Dad. Heard from Robert. Said something about car seats. If you need help installing them, I did plenty wrong back in the day. Let me know." I stared at the screen for a while. It was the first time he'd called in over a year, maybe 2. I hadn't counted. He left Texas when I was 24, chasing a second try at his 20s. He wasn't abusive, just gone. Paige walked over, glanced at my face, and didn't ask. She slid a sticky note in front of me instead. Car seats, X4 newborn diapers, X 12-packs, tiny socks. Zoe picks. I nodded. Got it. We opened the box from the coat closet. We'd stuffed it there a year ago when the home study first kicked off. Superstition, probably. You stash the baby stuff out of sight in case someone at the agency senses you're too eager. Like they'll penalize hope. Inside were 2 swaddles, a rattle, a thermometer we'd bought during flu season, and 1 book about sibling bonding that was now hilariously underqualified. I set the swaddles on the couch like placemats. Paige brought over a stack of pacifiers still sealed in their retail plastic. Then we opened the card Robert had handed me. Inside was a thick gift card to a big box baby store. No note, just the amount. That's Robert. Sounds vague at first, then it sticks. Paige was already dialing our pediatrician's office. She left a message. "Hey, it's Paige Monroe. We're bringing home 4 next week. We need an appointment for Zoe's intake and referrals for newborn care. Call me back." I sent an email to the client I was wrapping a project with, Sustain Analytics out of Seattle. I'll be offline in defined blocks next week due to finalization of a family matter. Files are updated. Questions can wait. I didn't ask permission. I was done asking. Paige reached for a pack of sticky stars and grabbed a pen. She wrote ZOE on one in all caps and stuck it on the pantry door beneath a taped-on strip that said "Family" in purple marker. It looked like a school project. Too corny, too bright, but it didn't matter. It held weight. We shut down the laptops. The screens glowed, then dimmed. I stretched my back and reached for my water when the doorbell rang. I checked the time. Close to 9:40 p.m. Paige froze mid-step. "Did you forget to cancel something?" "No," I said, "unless the ghost of Amazon has decided to judge us in person." I opened the door. Malik stood there with a small toolbox in one hand and a six-pack of Gatorade in the other. "Figured you didn't mean tomorrow like regular people," he said. "And this'll keep you upright while you try to fake being ready." He walked past me like he owned the place, set the toolbox on the island, and opened the Gatorade box like he was about to run a marathon. "Outlet covers, window latches, cabinet locks," he said, tapping the toolbox. "I know you probably Googled this stuff, but Google doesn't tell you which screws strip and which ones don't fit modern hardware." "Fair enough," I said, pulling out 2 bottles of Gatorade. "You take orange or red?" "Red's for victory," he said. "Orange is for people who peak too early." Paige was already clearing off the kitchen counter, moving spreadsheets and notes into a pile. "Do you want coffee or a chair?" she asked. "I want both," Malik said. "I just watched a video of a guy dropping twins off at school and crying in the minivan. I came here to feel useful." He knelt beside the first window and pulled out a small drill. The hum filled the room as he started screwing in the first latch. "You ever think it'd come to this?" he asked without looking up. "I thought it might," I said, "but not this fast. And not all 4. He nodded. "It's always fast when it's right." We kept working. Me handing him tools, Paige reading off cabinet measurements, the 3 of us moving like a team that hadn't practiced but knew the playbook anyway. An hour later, the place had a baby gate in the hallway, 5 outlet covers, and 1 cabinet that refused to close because I apparently measured from the wrong side. Malik wiped his hands and stood. "You'll be fine," he said. "You're already past the part most people get stuck on, waiting for perfect." As he headed for the door, he paused. "Oh, and your garage light's been flickering." "I'll bring a replacement next time," I nodded. "Thanks, man." He smiled. "Don't thank me yet." "Wait till Tuesday." The door clicked shut behind him. Paige and I stood there for a second. Quiet. Then she said, "Let's make a list for tomorrow. We still need pajamas, and a small mountain of diapers." I picked up a pen. "And a plan for where the cribs go," she grinned. "And a plan for surviving on no sleep." I wrote that down too. Thursday morning, Malik was crouched near the hallway baseboard, laughing under his breath, while I tried to decode the anchor instructions like they were written in ancient Sanskrit. "You sure this says rotate gently and not snap off and curse?" I asked. "It says, call someone who knows what they're doing," Malik replied, holding up a stud finder like it was a magic wand. Then my phone rang. Marisol. I wiped my hands on my jeans and answered on speaker. "Quick update," she said, straight to the point. "I got another email from a concerned relative saying you're impulsive and your extended family is unsupportive." I didn't even ask who. "We already documented their position," I said. "We can submit a support plan addendum if needed." "Already drafted," she said. "Check your inbox." I opened my laptop on the counter and pulled up the document. It was beautiful in that cold, bureaucratic way. Clean, structured, unemotional. Neighborhood support, defined work schedule blocks, Robert's letter of support stripped of every flashy board title so it didn't look like we were name-dropping for influence. Paige walked over with her coffee, skimmed it, and nodded. "Needs our firm's policy," she said. She opened her own machine and dropped in the internal memo about flexible hours. Then she attached a signed note from her partner, Karina, who had apparently been sitting on it for weeks, just waiting for the ask. I added the retainer agreement from Sapphire Ridge, and a screenshot of our joint calendar showing Tuesday to Friday, blocked out as family intake. No fluff, just facts. Marisol didn't even pause. The deadline is still by 5 o'clock Friday, she said. The court clerk leaves on time, and if it's not stamped, the infants go to a couple in Sacramento. Zoe goes to a different family, deeper into the system. I don't like splitting siblings. We're not letting that happen, I said. I could hear her typing on the other end. Marisol works fast. She rearranges lives while you're still organizing folders. We hung up. Less than 5 minutes later, a new email popped up. Subject line, concern from maternal relative. It was Linda. She'd copied Marisol and some attorney named Gregory Kincaid from a firm in Los Altos. The email read, I urge caution. Paige is capable. Evan is a variable. I can offer temporary placement with a stable family I know. Which meant what I already suspected. She wasn't just second-guessing. She was trying to redirect, trying to shop our kids to one of her clients like they were part of a trade deal. I didn't waste time. I forwarded the email to Robert. Then I BCC'd myself and logged the message just in case this turned into something more official. Then I replied to the thread. Simple. Clear. Attached is our updated support plan. We welcome any home visit you need today or tomorrow. We're available on short notice. I hit send and didn't look back. 30 minutes later, my phone rang again. This is Han, from the placement supervisor's office, the woman said. Her voice was clipped but not cold. We received a third-party recommendation this morning. I saw, I said. We don't take placement suggestions from third parties, she said. It's unethical and undermines the court's discretion. Understood, I replied. But I want to say this clearly, she added. Thank you for the clarity in your plan. It's rare. It helps that one landed deeper than she probably intended. I hung up and found Paige leaning on the counter, arms crossed, brow tense. She tried to shop our kids, Paige said, like they were property she didn't approve of. I nodded. Not about winning the argument anymore. No, she said. It's about who we are when people push. I stared at the window for a second. Malik had moved on to reinforcing the curtain rods and was humming something that sounded like a lullaby, badly off-key. I opened my phone and found the voicemail again. My dad's voice, still awkward, still strange in my ears. I called him back. He picked up on the second ring. Hey, he said, cautious. I need you, I said. If you can drive down Friday afternoon, I need someone who's held a wrench and changed a diaper and knows how to stay out of the way when people are panicking. There was a pause. I can be there by 2, he said. I'll shut up and hold a wrench. It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever get from him. And honestly, it was enough. By lunch, I had 4 car seat models laid out on the table, sorted by size, price, and crash test ratings. I had links, color codes, and store availability within a 20-mile radius. I also had a credit card balance I didn't want to test, but test it I would. Paige walked over with a notepad and a pencil behind her ear. How bad is it? Bad, I said. Not Target bad. Big box retail at holiday pricing. Bad. She didn't flinch. We'll figure it out. And I believed her. Because we kept figuring it out. Because figuring it out had become the thing we were best at. We pulled out of the driveway at 7:51 p.m. The sky was streaked with what was left of sunset, and the car was filled with that wired kind of silence that only comes after a long week, a heavy win, and the realization you're not even close to done. Paige had a grocery bag on her lap with Robert's card, a printed version of the pediatric appointment email, and 2 pacifiers still in their packaging, just holding them, like she needed something small to anchor the big. I adjusted the mirrors and said, Target's open till midnight. We've got time. She looked over, calm but serious. We don't just need pajamas and diapers. We need wipes, sippy cups, toothbrushes, Zoe's favorite cereal if we can guess what it is. I'll text Marisol. Maybe she can ask her, I said, or at least narrow it down to non-sugary animals. The engine hummed steady. My father's truck was still parked at the curb when we left. He said he'd stay and swap out the garage light for us, which he did without asking, like he needed the task more than we did. I still didn't know what to do with that voicemail. The years between. The fact that he showed up and didn't make it about him. We pulled onto El Camino, past a drive-through where the line wrapped around twice. "I think I'm running on thermos fumes," Paige said, lifting the travel mug and shaking it. "We'll hit the Starbucks inside," I said. "If not, I'll grab one of those bottled ones that taste like regret and chemicals." She laughed, not a big one, but enough to shake the tension out of her shoulders. "I'm scared," she said, not looking at me, "but not the bad kind. The kind that means this is big and real and coming." I nodded. Yeah, like strapping into a ride where you already threw the tickets away. The car was warm, the kind of warm that made you forget you were about to step into something chaotic and uncharted. We stopped at the last red light before the shopping center. A car rolled up next to us, some teenager in a Civic, music thumping, windows cracked even though it was barely 60 out. I looked straight ahead. Paige said, "What if Zoe hates it? What if she cries and doesn't stop for days?" "Then we keep showing up," I said. "And one day she stops crying. Or she cries less. Or she starts crying on our shoulder instead of at the wall." The light turned green. We passed the gas station near Shoreline, and I glanced down at the fuel gauge. 1 bar above empty. "Do we risk it?" I asked. She shrugged. "What's the worst that happens?" We pushed the cart in the car. I laughed, turned in, and filled the tank like I was prepping for something way bigger than a shopping trip. When I got back in, Paige was scrolling through her spreadsheet. "Do you think we're overdoing it?" "No," I said. "I think we're catching up." The store came into view. Big and bright, half-full parking lot, entrance glowing like an airport terminal for families who ran out of time and still wanted to get it right. As we pulled into a spot near the front, I sat back in the seat for a second before turning off the ignition. "Ready?" I asked. "No," Paige said, "but we're doing it anyway." That was the whole truth. I grabbed the list, she grabbed the bag, and we got out together. 2 people walking into a store like it was the last mission of the week, which in a way it was. The cold hit our faces fast, but we didn't stop moving. The house was baby-proofed. The documents were signed. Now we just needed to shop like people who meant it. The Mountain View Target glowed like it wanted to be important. Like it knew the people walking in this late weren't here for snacks. They were here for answers they could put in a cart. At 11:56 p.m., the place was almost empty. 2 college kids in pajamas were arguing about ramen flavors in aisle 5. A dad pushed a cart with one shoe on, and the kind of face that said he'd lost a bet with a toddler and was still trying to win the war. We took 2 carts. Not because we planned to fill them, but because pride is the enemy of progress. Paige grabbed a scanner gun and handed me a basket list she'd rewritten on the back of her receipt. "If we split up, we go faster," she said. "We're not splitting up," I told her. "This one's joint custody. First stop, car seats. 4 infant seats with bases that clipped in clean. No tools required." I checked each one twice. No squeaks, no second guessing. A red-shirted kid named Simon wandered over. "Need help loading?" We both said yes at the same time. The kind of yes that comes from people who've had just enough go wrong to know when to take the hand. Pajamas came next. Tiny footies, zippers only, because buttons are cruel at 3 a.m. Paige held up a rainbow set and flipped it like she was checking a fabric flaw. I grabbed a dinosaur one because Zoe had drawn a triceratops on a napkin last week and called it Friend. Then came diapers. Newborn size stacked like bricks, size 5s for Zoe. Wipes, rash cream, a bottle brush that looked like it belonged in a chemistry lab. We added thermometers, sippy cups, a 4-pack of tiny spoons, toothbrushes with ridiculous cartoon faces, and a bath mat with suction cups strong enough to hold down our doubts. Halfway through, Paige's pen ran dry. She clicked it, shook it, and then laughed. "Even the pen's tired," she said. She stopped near a plush display and went quiet. I didn't ask. I just picked out a penguin that matched Zoe's, a brown bear, a fox, and a floppy-eared rabbit. Paige didn't speak, but her smile was real and didn't need covering. The store was playing some slow acoustic cover of a song I didn't recognize. It filled the silence like warm air. At checkout, I placed the car seats on the belt one by one. The scanner chirped with each one. Beep, 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 beep. It sounded like counting in a language you only understand when you're ready. The clerk, bored but curious, looked up and asked, "You got quadruplets?" I said, "We got siblings." He nodded once. Nice. The total hit the screen. It was a number that used to scare me. This time, it didn't even blink me. I swiped the card, signed with a steady hand. We rolled the carts out into the cold air. The parking lot was mostly empty, the sky clouded over. Paige opened the trunk, and I loaded the seats like puzzle pieces we were finally allowed to solve. We stood there for a second longer than you'd expect, not talking, just watching. "I'm not scared," she said as we got in the car. "Me neither," I told her, and I meant it. When we pulled into the driveway, the house lights were still on. For once I didn't care. It looked like it was waiting. Inside, we lined up the pajamas on the couch by size, hung the 4 stockings on our own mantel, set the plush toys under them like they were guarding something we hadn't finished building yet. My phone buzzed once. A text from Linda. 2 lines. We should talk. I didn't open it. I turned the screen face down next to the receipts. We had talked, just not in the language she wanted. I stood in the doorway of the nursery. No cribs yet. No noise. Just space. I pictured 4 heads asleep. The quiet felt full, not empty. And the last thing I heard was that scanner in my head. Beep, 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 beep. Would you cut off a parent who tried to reroute your adoption? Drop a comment. Even just good story or your take. If you'd like to support the channel, tap Super Thanks. It's optional but really helps. And please like and subscribe. Huge for us. Easy for you.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.